Hey, my name is Kasper. Today we're going to take a kid's drawing and turn it into a 3D art piece. This is part of an annual tradition which I helped start in 2020, where we take, as I mentioned, kids drawings and turn them into like 3D art pieces. It could also be 3D models and other drawings. And the aim is basically just to make kids happy, make them excited about space and excited about the future. And so each year we invite people to sit down with their children and draw a rocket and send it in on Twitter with the hashtag KidsDrawRockets. And then a bunch of us spaceflight artists, as we like to call ourselves, will take these drawings and turn them into an art piece in our medium of choice. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to take this drawing that I thought was really cool, and we're going to turn it into a 3D scene in Blender, and we're going to slap some textures on it and do some really dramatic lighting. I think the colors of it was really cool. So let's just jump into it, and I will take you through the process while I do this live. So this is my first submission that I chose. I really like the colors. Nothing was said about it in the tweet. I don't really know much about the kid who drew this, but obviously it's very cool. I think it's very detailed. So I don't know if it's an older child, but yeah, I just thought it was really cool. And I think the colors I can really do something cool with. So we want to make a rocket and have it go into a cloud. I want to start off by just creating the rocket. Should be fairly simple. It's a very standard like Tintin kind of rocket, which I really like. Cool, I kind of like that. It does sort of go up in the middle where I suppose the engine is, and then there's these fins. Yeah, perhaps we'll have a little place for the engine to sit. There could be multiple engines, of course. This could be like a four-sided thing like this. Perhaps do a grid fill here. That's lovely. Yeah, simple. And then bring up the center here. It does sort of give me Terran R vibes. It does have a sort of little funky geometry down by the engine section. And then I'm thinking a classic 4 fins. So this is sort of viewed from a 45-degree angle. I'll just get the rough shape. Maybe it should just be 2 fins. If I want to bring this sort of the distance we see this at, it'll be quite far away. We could also interpret it more literally. It was probably attached in the beginning when they painted the whole rocket, and then they added this black sort of separation afterward. We could interpret as, okay, we have the fins attached, but then we add these paints. So it looks like it's detached, which I kind of like. It's a cool paint scheme, but it's still sort of realistic. Yeah, I really like how it sort of comes out of it sort of just grows out of the rocket like that. I love this so much, actually. Engine time. Are we thinking that this is an aerospike? Because of 1, the shape of this, and 2, the amount of exhaust here. There could be some hidden engines, or maybe it's just the plume expanding or some aerodynamic effect. What are we interpreting this as? I think it does look like a single stage rocket. Obviously it's an upper stage since it's almost in space, I guess, but could be a single stage, and then or maybe it's maybe we should find a more like futuristic technology. I don't know how I got here. I also found this, which I really like. I wanted to find a propulsion that was like white, bluish, and also was sort of futuristic. Obviously I could go with a hydrogen rocket engine, but it's weird. It's a variable specific impulse magnoplasma rocket. Oh, this is so cool. I love like old NASA diagrams and like visualizations. So beautiful. Like, look at this. Ah, so cool. Okay, why don't we go with an ion thruster, right? The general shape is sort of flat, and but it has this ring which I do like, and this central sort of spike. Not all of them has it, obviously, but I think we can do something with that. I like that. So we'll have a sort of shape in the middle, and then it sort of goes around, if that makes sense. I think that's kind of funky, kind of cool. It's not very traditional, but I think it's fun. Right, so we need a window. Here's a little trick. I think I'll just restart this. I don't really like the result. So I'll try a different method. We can make a good circle out of this, and maybe this is a better method. So what I want to do is duplicate this, make a circle, delete it, bridge these edge loops. Yeah, this is a lot cleaner. As you can see, there's no really distortions around the geometry. I'll just add a seam in here and make it sharp, because that's what we want to be the actual window. That's our window, very clean. A nice little rocket. Okay, let's get to some environment maybe. Okay, so do we think these are clouds or mountains? So I feel like they're different from this cloud here, right? But perhaps it's like in the distance, or it is clouds that are coming up through and then up into this cloud. It could be clouds still. And then those surfaces way below. Maybe it should just be clouds. I want the same composition, right? So we want a cloud in the center that our rocket is sort of going up into. Here's a free sample of a cloud. That's just stationary. Usually a cloud can be a bunch of VDB files, as you see here, and then you import all of them and it'll be an animation. But it can also be a single one like this. It'll sort of just be a little cloud like this. Then obviously if you add some lighting, it'll start to be more cloud-like. Sweet. Let's just start with that. We can obviously switch it out pretty easily later if we feel like that's necessary. Should also place the camera. Get our composition here. Let's have a moonlight. Have it be cinematic by being pretty close. By having it being close, it'll be a more cinematic sort of lighting instead of being far away and much stronger. Might be a little bit hard to see, but that's the general principle. Should have some earth glow as well. Sweet. Just an earth in the. I'll probably just comp in an earth in the edit. Yeah, let's have some clouds stretching out. I just want to see how this looks if it's rendered at a bunch of samples and transparent background, and then I'll just take this rough simple render, throw it into Photoshop, give it a background so we can see sort of how this looks. I don't like necessarily the sharp edges that these clouds have, but I think it'll give a general idea. Okay, so I had to stop it like mid-render because it was taking way too long. This has been going for an hour or so, and it's still very noisy. So let's go ahead and just add a simple background to this, just some, maybe a gradient like that, right? So we have, you know, earth to space. So that's pretty cool. Lighting on the cloud there is pretty neat. I think this will be a fine choice for now. Good like that for now. Obviously the clouds don't really make sense, but I think it's very artistic, so let's just go with it. Let's see if we have a moon anywhere. I think here it's a picture I took of the moon like years ago. I'm not sure. I'm definitely not doing it justice right now, but it's just like putting all the elements in, and then we can sort of play around with it. I feel like it needs some more motion. Like the rocket is actually ascending into space. Let's see if we add just a little bit of motion blur, if that is fun. I want it to be more like a wide angle, so instead of these out here being just a straight these in here, maybe they sort of curve out a little bit, sort of if it's a wide angle lens, if that makes sense. The other option is, of course, we actually add the stars in the render, or we do a separate render to sort of get that effect. Or maybe it's an option in the motion blur. Nah. We could also do it manually, like having like 5 different images, sort of blend them together. So you have one that goes like this in the center. And you have one like this actually in the top left and the bottom right. And then one like this in the top right and bottom left. And then sort of blend those together. Maybe that works. Let's try that. That is kind of the effect that I was going for. If you see that it's sort of like tilted around the center. I think that's fairly neat. Right, I think that's a good sort of baseline. If we hop back into Blender, we can start working on the textures of the rocket and then switch out those clouds, get a final render going, switch out the Earth and the Moon, and that'll be fine and dandy. That fits perfect. Okay, I see it. It's coming together. Nice. So what are we working with? I think this is sort of just a Voronoi texture. We'll get the distance. We'll say distance to edge. See what I mean? I think that's exactly it. And then we just have a color ramp. Control this, have it generated coordinates. Tweak the scale a bit. Let's even just sample the colors from the image, if we can. Yeah. And then that's just white, or maybe white with a light blue. Kind of love this. This is also, if you see some sort of stylized water caustics, like the reflections you see at the bottom of a pool. This is also a way of doing that. And now we just add some more details to make it more realistic. Cool, that's definitely very glass-like now. And then we'll just change the inside of the rocket to be a different material. Now let's add these sort of black separating lines that we see here. I want this to be an ion engine, so let's first of all have this be ion engine-y. Cool, so now we have a gradient going from the top to the bottom of both the center sort of longer one and the outer ring. Should probably multiply that with the color, then we can use the same color ramp for the alpha. I guess really it should just be one color. And this will just be the alpha, really. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, so that's not very dramatic, but we'll add some effects around that, which I think will look cool. And I like it just being a very clean gradient and not a lot of noise in it. But it could be longer, perhaps. I think this might be nice, actually. With the background as well, it'll probably fade. Because right now it's up against a gray background, but against a sort of more blue background. Okay, let's work on the texture of the rocket more. I want to have the shape of this contribute just a little bit to the roughness. So the light blue is probably just a little bit more rough or shiny than the darker blue. And then we have some small bumps, imperfections from the surface. Just some realism. And maybe some smudges. So here we could take this and say, this should be a color mix. This will be the 1. This will be 2. And then we can make this black and white, which just controls the roughness like that. Like that's pretty neat. I will just add some more, use this for some more detail, the Voronoi. I think we can do some neat stuff with the bump as well. I think perhaps if there's a separating edge between these, as if they're maybe like actual panels we'll have each of them at the same height and then just bring just the edge where the colors meet down. So white being up and black being down for the bump. So these will both be white, and then in the middle of them will be a black one. And if we look at that, that's just sort of a tiny black edge here. And if we plug that into a bump node, plug the normal into this, it looks like this. So now we actually have some sort of paneling, right? Sweet. So now it sort of catches the light a bit more. I might actually want to add some streaks in 3D here. I don't know if I want to do more volumes because it just adds a lot of render time, but maybe it just looks, I think it just looks cool. Okay, so now there's just sort of this vapor trail from each edge of the wings. Yeah. And then the final thing, I think I want the engine to be some different colors than just still the blue here, but without the pattern. Maybe I'll just have the edges here be black so it actually fits the sort of outline. I don't hate it. Yeah, I think this is a good start. I want to render this out and take it back into Photoshop and see how it looks with the other elements. Alright, let's see what this new render looks like. Ah, we didn't render with the clouds. Okay, and let's see if we add a sort of gradient overlay to this whole thing. Maybe just to the render itself. Just to sort of match the colors. Ooh, I think the color dodge is cool. I think that's pretty neat. I want to bring in the original drawing just so I can see sort of the color of that. Yeah, it's a bit more bright and vibrant. This is without anything. There's sort of a mismatch between the clouds here in the background. And then with this, it sort of brings it more together, I think. Maybe we want a little bit of motion blur on the clouds. I think this is a new thing I've begun doing just a little bit. Just sort of highlighting edges. It just sort of adds some manual highlights. Which I think can really bring it together. So now I've just added a bunch of little highlights everywhere. I might add some more, but you can see this is without, and this is with the highlights. It's just sort of all these little details everywhere, which just adds a little bit more dimension, a little bit more sort of a hand-drawn feel, but it still has the obvious 3D look to it. Just think of the light. So there's some earth glow from the bottom here. That this sort of panel might catch. I'm not drawing on every single one of them because there might be some imperfection that causes this little panel to be sticking out just a little bit more. You can see there is a little bit of a glow on this one, so I'll just highlight that just a little bit more. Still not like blending completely with the background, so I might have another gradient overlay, or maybe I'll even make the clouds blue in the render. I think it's a bit more teal, a little bit more light blue. So I think I will just implement that a little bit. Okay, so now I have this sort of movement here, which could bring some motion blur to the clouds, and then we render just in the middle of that. So it's frame 25, which should line up with the setup we had before. And then I want to see how it looks with these more blue clouds. Might be a bit too saturated, but let's see. I think it's a bit much because there's also color in the lights and a bit dark actually. It's very pixelated, but it looks like it does kind of match the rocket now. So at least we can sort of control those together. If they have the same look, we can match that to the background more easily. Okay, so I've done just a few things. I switched out the moon here for a NASA image. Put everything in folders here. This is a new render with a little bit of motion blur in the clouds. I need to make a high quality render because it's totally washed out in the top cloud here. I did that, and then I fixed the window here, window fix. Added some window highlights, some bigger rocket glow highlights. And that's sort of it, I think. And then I will just switch out the earth now for a better picture. I don't like how it shows through the clouds down here. So I think I will adjust these just a little bit. Maybe make them more transparent because they're very dense right now. The moon sticks out a little bit. It needs to be more blue. You want it there, you want it to be highlighted but not take all the focus, because the focus should be the rocket. With that in mind, I think I will just add some general sort of overlay stuff here. A little bit on the moon. And this will be overlay. And you can see the sort of contrasted grades. I want it to be subtle, but you know, create a little bit more depth in the image. Highlight the rocket, highlight the moon a little bit. I like that. I think we want some extra engine glow also. The overlay, maybe we want some color dodge stuff. I think just a little bit of adjustments to the cloud here, and then a higher quality render, and then I think we can take it from there. Obviously, maybe we'll discover some new things, but I think that's pretty cool. Cool. So this is the new render. As you can see, the clouds are more transparent. This is the old one, which I do like. The added detail you see when it's more dense like this, whereas this is more just sort of faded. So I think I've named this extra clouds, and I feel like I just want to use these clouds here at the bottom. Some extra sort of clouds at the bottom. But I do want to just have those and not the rocket or anything. So we could do that. We'll do a mask. And then make it softer. So we have the more transparent clouds on top, and then they get sort of darker and opaque at the bottom. I do think this is turning out very cool. Guess we could add our own sort of gradient on top of that, the exhaust here. I do kind of like that. There's not a lot of depth to it. It's still very flat. So perhaps if I make it just brighter in the middle, a small brush. I think I'm really happy with this, how this is turning out, because of, you know, the reference drawing obviously requires it to be a lot of blue, a lot of white. And I haven't really worked with just I don't consider myself very good with colors. And I think this is a good sort of teaching in colors, where it's just like, okay, we have this central, very, very simple color palette. Like, basically just one color, and then some white also, and then that's what you're going with, which I think just helps it sort of come together really nicely. And on that note, I think I should take the earth down here. Just make sure there's no orange in this, because it feels like there's a little bit of orange. I think last thing, we just add some final touches, some noise all over it, and a little bit of maybe some distortion. So you might have guessed already what I'm doing here, but I just want to add a little bit of distortion to this. Okay, so maybe not overlay. This is a very manual distortion, obviously. You could add just a chromatic aberration. But I think that would just be around the edges. It's not a huge thing, but it just adds just a little bit of blue and green on either side of, like, You see there's a little bit of blue tint on the edge of the rocket here, and a little bit of green tint on the edge here. And obviously, since it's the whole thing, you'll see it on the moon as well. And should see it like just slightly on the stars as well. It's very subtle, and I think it brings the whole thing together. Obviously, there's still some denoising noise here and in the clouds as well. So I think what I'm actually gonna do, this is the final edit that I'm gonna do. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna render this whole thing again at like double or triple the resolution. Do the whole edit again at the new resolution, which should hopefully get away with a bit of the noise and just have a better resolution if I want to do anything else with it. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was so fun to make. If you go to the Twitter account Kids Draw Rockets, you can see all the different creations that all these artists make coming out throughout December. And you can also browse the Kids Draw Rockets hashtag and see all the wonderful drawings that children have made. So it's just wonderful. I have at least another creation coming up with another video, so look forward to that. Subscribe, and that's all I really have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.